Hey guys, it's Kate. I am doing a test painting today with my new MozArt Komorebi watercolor set. It's a set of 40. I did a swatch and some testing. This is actually my first test painting with them, so I'm doing a little bit of a watercolor abstract today. So I'm going to be testing out quite a few of the colors and also the black and white and metallics. I'll ask you for your opinion later, but I kind of had some thoughts as to the outcome, and I'm thinking I maybe should have stopped sooner, but I'm also glad I didn't because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to do the black and white, which I wanted to see how they would turn out on top of the color. I know they're very transparent. Well, the white is, and I just wanted to see how much it would actually show. So I'm going in here with my cat's tongue synthetic brush, and I really love that thing. It holds a lot of water and color, and you can do some pretty big stuff with it. I'm running into some violets and pinks. They're some of my favorites, but really all the colors are. It's hard to choose. And going in there now with some gray and just going around the page, adding some water, seeing how the color spreads, and adding dabs of darker color, and just trying to keep it really loose and organic feeling. So far, I'm really liking these paints, and they dry just so they don't lighten a lot when they dry. It's really nice to play with them, and I think I'll be bringing them out for quite a few videos in the future. I have a few other sets that I like to paint with too, but since these are new, they'll probably be making a cameo pretty often. So I'm trying to do some dark edges and kind of fading it out with some water. And I'm also adding some different colors on the inside. It's actually reminding me a bit of like gemstones or something like that, where you have those rock slices like amethyst, and it just looks so pretty when you open them up. I used to have one when I was a little kid on a shelf, and I used to just look at it and just marvel at how did these things come about? How did they get created? I have to say, I'm dipping into the turquoise and I really love it. I love turquoise and teal colors. I just really love the pop that it gives, and it's so bright. It's so pigmented, and a little bit goes a long way here. And as you can see with the different colors, some of them spread more than others when you wet it. And that's really the same of any watercolors I've ever worked with. You have certain colors, especially the reds and crimsons, they just love to move on the page when you add water. And it also depends a lot on the paper. So the paper I'm working on is B watercolor paper. It is 100% cotton, and I'm working on a sheet that is 6 by 9. It's a reasonable watercolor paper, and I don't really get a lot of buckling and things like that you might get with um, a wood pulp paper. I have Arches paper too, but I really like this V, and it's great for little projects like this and for experiments to see how the paint works with you and your brush. I have a good friend who does these wonderful, wonderful drawings with pen and ink. And she uses fountain pens and dip pens and just does wonderful work. And she's not really much of a painter, but she is very much an artist. And I remember talking to her once about watercolor, and she said she didn't like it because it was too hard to control. It just moves all over the place. And so I have to say, working with both acrylics and watercolors, and I've never done anything with oils. I don't know if I'm that adventurous, but It's true. They go everywhere, but depending on what you're in the mood for that day, watercolors, they're just so relaxing and you literally go with the flow. And with practice and stuff, you can kind of control it more, but in the end, it'll spread and go where it wants to, even with your control. So I finished the watercolor painting part and I let it dry. So I am going in with the metallic gold. So I'm just painting around the dark edges and putting in some accents. And it's a little bit hard to see on the screen as I'm doing it, at least with this burnt umber that I have on there. But as I get a little bit higher up into the blues, you'll see a lot more detail. And I really like how the metallic laid down. It's a little bit more subtle than a paint marker or something that has more metallic pigment in it. But I really do like the look. And when you're looking at it in person, it's better, I think, than the camera. But after I finish adding all the accents, I'll also hold it up to the camera to try to get some light on it and to give you a better view. I hope that you're joining along with me painting today. I don't know what watercolors you like to use. If you have some favorites, I'd love to hear in the comments below. And I love trying new products. If there's something that you recommend that you really like to work with, I'd love to hear about it. And also, do you prefer abstracts? Do you prefer to try to paint still life or any other styles? I'd like to hear that too. Me, I like landscapes for sure. I like to draw florals and I am trying my hand at more abstracts. And I think, you know, there's a lot of people that talk about how easy abstract is and anybody can do it. And it's just um, it's not a special kind of art, but I really disagree. It is really hard to come up with something in your head and then have it turn out on paper just the way you planned. Sometimes I can think of an idea and it looks beautiful in my imagination. And I don't know if you can hear that, but my cat is crying in the background. I think she's ready to be fed or maybe just want some pets. but but abstract art is so much of a challenge, and I'm hoping that with more practice that I can get better at recreating the things that I can see in my imagination and that I see inspiration from when I see either things online or things just so finding things in nature that I think look beautiful to me and copying shapes and getting those down on paper with the right tones and values and, composition and all of that's so important. And I think one of the things that I have challenge with is really knowing when to be finished. And I keep thinking, oh, well, one more thing. And, you know, more definitely is more, but less is probably a lot more as well. She's crying again in the background. So I'm finishing up the gold around the edges here. I've also done some little lines along the inside colors, really thinking about just the different stones that you might see, the gemstones in the middle, and with the rock on the outside and the darkness of that, the neutral tones with the jewel tones. And I think the colors in this are really attractive to me. And I like the contrast of the different areas of the painting. So I'm letting this dry again, and I'm holding it up to the camera so you can see, how the metallic paint looks on the regular background. So I'm finishing up the gold I'm going to hold the picture up to the camera and kind of move it around a little bit. So hopefully you can see the metallic shine. I really like how subtle it is in the light reflection. And I'm really pleased with how it turned out. And if I could go back in time, I may have stopped right here. I think I'm really happy with that result. But for testing purposes and because I do have a hard time stopping when I should, I let it dry and then continue with the black and white. And I'd really love your opinion in the comments as to which version you like better. Would you have stopped at the gold or would you have continued with black and white? So I'm taking the black and just going around the very edges of the shapes and adding that extra bit of contrast. And I have a very, very light touch with the paintbrush. It's barely touching the paper. So just a little bit of water and black paint is coming out onto the page. And I'm just going really easy around the edges of all of the shapes. I'm also trying to stay outside of where I put the gold and just going back in for a little bit more paint when I need it to continue the line. And it's pretty therapeutic doing this. I'm not trying to be too careful going, I'm purposely making the line, kind of ragged looking, but also solid. It varies in width. And so I'm just going through and getting all of these edges. And as I watch it happening, I really, I do kind of like it both ways. It's so subjective. I wish there were two versions of the same painting, which I guess there are. And I can always make another one and stop at the gold too. But I'm really impressed with how this black is turning out. It's really richly pigmented. It's easy to lay down on the paper. It just flows right off the brush. I'm just adding a little bit of water and more paint as I go, kind of stopping to look at it now and then just to see how it's turning out and where I want to put my next line. I like how the paint colors have kind of flowed together in some of the parts of the painting, and it's kind of airy looking, almost cloudy. I really like how the black and white highlights look in general, and I will be going in with white as well. And I'm going to use the watercolor white just to see how it does turn out and show in front of the other colors, especially the darker ones. And that one probably will dry a little bit differently. In fact, it does. I end up going back over it with a jelly pen afterward. But I'm almost done with my black lines, just kind of giving it one more once over. And I think we'll call it good on this. So I'll let it dry again, and then I will moisten up my white paint and go in with the white on the same brush. So with the white, I am going kind of inside of the gold in the darker color areas, and I'm kind of putting in some scattered dots just to add a little bit extra. And I'm not following all of the contour, just in some of the areas. And so as the white goes on, I was pretty impressed with how it showed up. And I make sure to get extra pigment on my brush, and I just really want to push it and see how far it'll go. So you'll see me do a lot more dips with the white than I had to do with the black. The black just flowed so nicely. But I'm just happy getting carried away with the paint and putting in all of my dots, which I find that I do that in a lot of the things that I paint. So it definitely is, as far as mark making go, it's definitely a favorite. And I like scattering them around in different areas to add some of that visual texture and some contrast. And so I'm finishing up with the dots, and you can kind of see from the close up that some of them did fade as they dried. And so I'm going to break out the Jelly Roll pen and just go over those again to make them a little bit brighter since they did fade some. But they did not fade nearly as much as I thought they would. They just don't really pop. And if I'm going to have them there, I really want them to pop for sure. And I do just love that turquoise. I keep looking at it while I record this voiceover. And I think as far as colors on the page, it's my favorite. And that is number 51 on the Komorebi color chart in the MozArt palette. So I'm almost done going over all of the rest of the dots. And I would love to hear from the viewers out there. Which of the two versions do you like the best? Do the dots and the black speak to you, or would you have stopped at the gold in the outlines? What's your style? So as I finish this up, I have a couple other videos in the pipeline coming out. I have a couple of other abstracts that I did with this watercolor set. I will have some more collage for you. And until next time, keep creating.